Hi, thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Sebastian Echeverry. I'm a reporter with the Long Beach Post, and today I'm joined with Julian Cernuda, who's the 2020 Census Project Manager for the city of Long Beach. Julian, thanks so much for being with us.
Of course, glad to be here. Thank you.
Right, so I'm pretty sure this topic, the census, has just been back and forth, and just yesterday, I think uh, there was already another change to the deadline for now. Correct. So from what we understand is that it was July before the pandemic was the deadline census.
Mhm.
Then the pandemic pushed it to, was it October 31st, and then it got switched
Correct.
to September 30th, which is where we were at now, and now we're back to that October deadline, if I'm correct. So I guess that's the most timely aspect of this as of right now. How are you guys doing as a project manager to kind of? Yeah, I'm sure you guys are feeling some whiplash, probably.
Well, the census project has, our goal is to get everybody counted, and it definitely has been a ride. A lot of challenges just from the beginning. To the the goal to have every person counted in the country, and particularly in cities like Long Beach, we're very diverse, and we have a large what's called hard to count communities here. So we do need every day, every minute we can to get everybody counted. So we are happy to see that extension by the court yesterday evening, as you mentioned, to give us additional month to get everybody counted. So it does require a lot of preparation, and I would say flexibility is key. And I think here in Long Beach, our city administration and elected officials saw the importance of the census, and were able to prepare, for that for a couple of years. And I think that preparation internally and with our external partners, through the Complete Count Committee that we have here, really prepared us for these kind of challenges and shifts in timeline together. So we all knew kind of what we were doing, and we certainly did not have, for example, a plan set for a pandemic scenario, but we were able to be flexible with that together because we had built those relationships previously in planning for the original census timeline.
Mhm. So we know that the census is used to essentially dictate where funds go um, to communities and neighborhoods. So specifically for Long Beach, can you talk a little bit about what is on the line? What kind of funding is on the line when it comes to the census response here in Long Beach for 2020?
Sure. So very briefly, there are kind of two big umbrellas that I like to tell people that are on the line. One is representation, across all levels of government. And the second one is what you mentioned, which is funding. And that's obviously, they're both very important. So focusing on funding here, just a little bit of background information is there's a few studies that's been done. And basically those studies identified about 325 federally run programs. So I mentioned that because the count, for example, let's say in the city of Long Beach, the account at the end of the day is plugged into this formula for that program, and it gives the federal government a dollar amount for that program that then routes its way to, let's say, our communities here in Long Beach. So here, every year the federal government distributes through those programs over $900 billion. Some studies even say $1.5 trillion a year. And here, in California, we're the largest beneficiaries and recipients of that funding, about $115 billion or more. So we, of course, get a slice of that here in the city of Long Beach. So this funding, really supports, what's on the line here for us locally. At the end of the day, what a good census count means for us is that means that we're able to have funding from the federal government that we can use to make sure we have safe roads to drive on, walkable sidewalks, even clean water infrastructure, our Parks and Recs Marine Department, and even our school systems. They use that to have, parks for children. The school system also are huge beneficiaries of what we call census-derived funding. So they use that to help feed, provide literally hundreds of thousands of meals a year, even, for children that may otherwise not have food. They also, Head Start, if you're familiar with that program, is also supported through census funding. And it really goes to every big sector of our lives. Although the census only comes around once every 10 years, it really does impact the quality of our residents every single day through a whole swath of programs and what we see on the ground, whether it's, a college loan program or funding for hospitals through crises like this that's happening right now, it really does support a lot of what we're able to do here to, eventually at the end of the day, ensure that people have a good quality of life here for the city of at the city of Long Beach.
Right. And it's been said that the state of California is probably one of the toughest states to count, for many reasons, both geography, its region, it's very expansive. The people here as well, a lot of different cultures and language barriers that some communities may experience. Shrinking that down to Long Beach, though, what kind of challenges do you see here in Long Beach? And maybe if you can talk about what neighborhoods specifically or what regions of Long Beach is it difficult to get in there and make sure that people are counted for the census?
Yeah. So basically, the way that piece works is we have what's called hard to count communities. And as you mentioned earlier, California is widely, acknowledged to be the hardest to count state. And then just a little tidbit of information, Los Angeles County is actually considered the hardest to count county in all of our country. And then, we're of course the second largest city in the county. And you can imagine that same kind of challenge trickles down all the way to the local level. So, here it is a challenge. We have a lot of what's called hard to count tracts, or just basically areas that the census uses to get a count of our residents. And basically, there are a lot of different reasons why someone may be considered hard to count. And we do have a large number of our hard to count communities here in Long Beach. Just some examples of what might deem someone to be in a hard to count community. It's socioeconomic and demographic characteristics. So for example, we have a lot of people here who have English as a second language. A lot of immigrants here in our communities, both documented and not documented. And just to be clear, everyone needs to be counted. Also, it's a wide range. So it can be anywhere from a senior who is bedridden in their home or in a nursing facility to a college student. Young children ages 0 to 4 are also actually the hardest to count. Sometimes parents or the guardians forget that children count because they think, oh, they have to be legal adults or voting age. So it's a lot of misinformation that may occur. And then also just the characteristics, crowded living units as well. Hidden, low visibility housing. So it's a host of these characteristics that if you layer on top of one another, makes it harder and harder for the Census Bureau to get people counted. Specifically, the areas here in Long Beach that, we're kind of really focused on to make sure that we get the count where it needs to be are areas in North Long Beach. There are some pockets in North Long Beach, particularly the DeForest Park area neighborhood is one area that we focus on a lot with our community partners. And then if you move down to the West Long Beach as well is another area where there are a lot of hard to count community members. Along the port, for example, is one area as well that, there actually are people that live in that heavy industrial area. And a lot, some of the characteristics in that community, that a lot of them are English speakers. About 100% of the population there are immigrants. And they have, unfortunately, low access to broadband or no access to broadband. So the internet, is extremely important, particularly this round, because the census is online for the first time ever since the 1700s. So it's, working with our partners to really dig deep into our communities in North Long Beach, West Long Beach, to make sure we get the word out. And the biggest concentration of hard to count members that we have is in downtown and central Long Beach. We have a lot of, all these characteristics are really centered in our downtown and central Long Beach area. So those are our focus areas, and because that's where our hard to count communities are. And, there are, however, other tracts and areas of the city that are doing very well as well. So it's not, an easy kind of like a way to say, oh, this area is great, this area is not. There's, because we're so diverse, we have to take a really tailored approach to make sure that we reach as many people as we possibly can.
Right. And, covering North Long Beach myself, I know that speaking with the DeForest Park Neighborhood Association, they really, I understand that they had a census event where they, try to keep people socially distanced and whatnot, but at the same time, try to provoke the community to come out and to register for that. which is some of the things we were talking about, where you mentioned you reach out to the community groups in those areas to kind of filter that information out to their communities. I just wanted to remind our viewers that, being a live chat, if you have any questions about the census or anything that you'd like to get answered about it, feel free to drop that question down in the comment section if you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and we'll try and weave that into the conversation. I think another question here is I know we talked about challenges that the project faces, just for the geography of it, the communities that you have to go into. But I'm sure COVID-19, like many other things, has made things extremely difficult. Can you talk about what some of the challenges COVID-19 presented? Are some census workers still out there in the streets going door to door, like I think most people think of when they think about census outreach? How's that working with this virus?
Sure, yeah, definitely happy to share on how kind of we, kind of adjusted or modified our approaches, as a city, and then also with our partners together. So, in mid-March, just like everyone else, that, caused a kind of period to reevaluate how we were going to do things moving forward. And, we had basically a plan that was very focused on, our focus groups, and research had basically told us that the one-to-one connections, the in-person connections at the end of the day is what really gets people motivated to complete the census questionnaire. So, we had working internally with our departments, like our libraries, our Parks, Recs, and Marine department, and our health departments, for example, to fold census education and outreach into those events that were happening, like movies at the park, any kind of, youth sports, things like that. And externally, we were partnering with our nonprofits and our businesses as well to, have that interaction. That changed very quickly, in March. So what we did is we focused a lot more in the kind of like a digital and paid advertisement space for the first few months after the onset of COVID. That was a plan already from the way we're going to be approaching the census, but we had to really make it more robust, whereas before it wasn't as robust as we had planned. So maybe people that are viewing this right now, or you have seen some billboards that we have located all throughout Northwest and Central Long Beach. And then we've also did a paid social media advertisement, like on Facebook and Twitter, to make sure that we got people engaged that way. We also kind of looked to more traditional kind of strategies of outreach. So, here people get, like a utility bill. So we partner with our energy resources and technology department to make sure that we provided census information in the utility bill envelopes. So when people got that, they knew that the census was here. So really just having to think about how can we still, have as much of a touch as we can, with our residents, while maintaining, at a safe distance. So that's kind of what we did internally. And maybe around July or so, we started working with our partners to do door canvassing, door hanger canvassing. So again, kind of respecting the COVID guidance, making sure we didn't really interact with people, but still wanting to inform them about the importance of the census. They shifted a lot to door hanger outreach, which, in a hard to count area. So that was kind of another way that we're able to be creative. You might have heard also like census caravans. They're basically like people driving their cars down Anaheim, for example, just honking their horns, with census signs, I think creative. Also just bike caravans as well. People had DJs playing, on the music playing in the vehicles, anything that could draw the attention, towards the census, is we were willing to try and give it a go, to be honest, because it was such unprecedented scenario that we hadn't thought about.
Gotcha. And I think something that I wanted to bring up as well was the confusion perhaps behind the question of your immigration status. I know that there was conversations maybe floating around that it was going to be on the census, and then is it or is it not on the census? I was wondering if you can maybe answer that question. Is that question itself on the census this year? And also, has that confusion maybe got in the way of some of the outreach efforts you've attempted to do?
Yeah, so to be very clear, the citizenship question is not on the questionnaire that people respond to, whether it's online, by phone, or by mail. Again, it is not on there. There was, last year and then even this year, I believe a little bit, that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said that that question was not to be included. So it does not appear on the questionnaire. So hopefully people feel, better about that piece. We certainly do believe and anticipate that and, believe that it was a challenge for us because, a lot of people are fearful and have anxiety that, information on the questionnaire may be shared to agencies, federal agencies that they do not want their information shared with. So that question is not on there. And just to be clear, any information that is provided through the questionnaire in the Census Bureau cannot be shared to other agencies. Doesn't matter if it's, this, federal level, state level, or local level. It just can't because the Census Bureau is protected and your answers are protected by very strong federal laws that prohibit the Bureau from doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think another question I wanted to bring up, or a topic here, is talking about the how does the city determine what is enough? How do you set those goals? And then obviously it's how do you get to complete it, but how do you set those goals in the first place?
Yeah.
Of response rate, or we want to make sure that we hit X amount of percentage of response in this community. How does the city go about deciding what works and what doesn't?
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good question. We took a very collaborative approach. That was always kind of like our intention from the beginning. Launching the Complete Count Committee was, our effort to do that, to do it together. So, we as a Complete Count Committee, and that was chaired by LBUSD, the school district, and then the city, and then we had an additional, 40 or 45 members through all these, cross section of industries and organizations. We created a strategic plan, and together, our goal is, to get a complete and accurate count. That's always been our goal. We believe that, in that pursuit to count everyone, is that we'll reach the highest number of people counted here in the city of Long Beach. So that's been our goal. What we also kind of used to kind of, as posts and goals and milestones, we did take a look at our 2010 final response rate, which, if anyone's curious, it was 68.3% in 2010. So we did look at that both overall as a city, and then we broke it down by neighborhoods or census tracts to understand what was going on a more, more local level, a smaller kind of regional level. So we took the tracks of the final tracks of the 2010 response rates, and then we basically compared them with what's happening today. So the Bureau does share with us almost daily updates on the census response rates, and we're keeping tabs on all the tracks, of course, and specifically those areas that I mentioned earlier to see how they're performing, using this data-driven approach to then focus our efforts in the tracks in the neighborhoods that are coming in below where they need to be coming in at. So that's how we really determine where to focus our efforts, is by utilizing this daily data that comes in and comparing it to previous performances in the 2010 census.
I think that's a good segue into a question we received actually from the audience. I know we chatted a little bit about this, and again, it goes back to that confusion of the whiplash of the deadline. But can you clarify when the census will end and what deadlines currently exist for people to respond?
Sure. So as of yesterday evening, we have a deadline of October 31st, 2020. And that is, the appeals process of the court. That's something that we believe, and our partners believe, the Trump administration will exercise, is an appeals process. So right now, it is October 31st, pending the appeals kind of outcome of that. So, what we want to make sure, our residents understand is that it's not too late to get counted right now. So please do not delay if you have not yet completed the census. Don't delay in responding to the census, even if it gets pushed out, because the appeals process may change that. We just simply don't know. And that's why there's still a sense of urgency, because we want to make sure people get counted as soon as possible, because there is so much riding on the line. one thing I failed to mention, just to kind of explain a little bit more why it's so important on the funding piece that we went into. There was a study done by the state of California and the county of LA, and they basically let us know that for every person that is counted, that contributes $2,000 every year for the next 10 years. So we're talking about $20,000 that could be coming into our communities to help for better roads, better sidewalks, better infrastructure in schools. So everyone that doesn't get counted, you can essentially think of it as missing out on this funding, that could have bettered our quality of lives here as residents here at the city of Long Beach.
Right. And another question here from our audience, it's how is Long Beach doing in regards to the response rate? I do know that as of last week, I believe the city reported that the response rate was 66.9%, if I'm not mistaken. Where are we standing at right now with the city's response? Can you provide more details on that?
Sure. So as of, let me see here, as of 9/24, so yesterday, we are at 67.3. So if you recall earlier, we said that the 2010 final response rate was 68.3. So we are literally within, shooting distance and striking distance of our 2010 response rate, despite, all the challenges and the misinformation and, the COVID-19. So we are doing a good job, but that doesn't mean, our goal is not to get to 68.3. Our goal is to achieve, the most accurate count possible. So this by no means, means that we're going to be stopping or slowing down. This just means it's a good milestone to reach, and we have to keep going. And if you kind of want to break it up, which is, I think it's good to do the whole city into the census tracts. What you find is that some tracts have actually, Sebastian, surpassed their 2010 response rates. Some doing remarkably well. They're, 5 points, even 10 points ahead of their 2010 response rates. In fact, about 40% of our census tracts have met or exceeded their 2010 response rates. And we have another, I think it's another 20% or so that are within 0 to 2.5 points of coming in within their previous performance in 2010. So we are all moving in the right direction. We just really have to speed that up because of the uncertainty around the timeline piece. So that's where we're at right now. A solid 67.3, I say, but we still have ways to go to get to that complete count, of course.
And do you know if there's a way where officials that are able to determine a way where maybe money or funds is set aside for the percentage that didn't respond? So we know that if we hit, for example, 60% response rate, is money still allocated for that like 40% that didn't respond, or how does that work?
I wish that was the case. Then we wouldn't be so worried about it having an undercount. So that's a really, really good question. And unfortunately, the way it works is that if people are not counted in the census, there is really no way to, compensate for that undercount. And an undercount, basically, it is what it means that we did not count everyone that actually lives in the city of Long Beach. So there is no fancy formula, no algorithm, no additional census that happens on the side to count additional people. That's why it's so important. We literally only have one shot, every 10 years to make sure we get everybody counted and we do it correctly for our residents here. So there is no alternative to the census. This is, basically a fundamental building block of democracy and how our funding from the federal government is sent to state and local jurisdictions. That's why it's so important. So that's why we have to get everybody counted right now. Otherwise, we do lose out on that funding and the representation too.
And I think we have another question here from the audience. As beyond responding to the census yourself, what can people do to help out?
Oh, another really good question. So yeah, I always let people know if I go to a presentation or something, I have to give people homework. So a great thing that people can do really is, and this might sound very simple and easy, but it's really, have a conversation with your friends and family. You'll be shocked to know that maybe a lot of your friends and family members have not yet completed the census. So, and our goal, if you want to be a census ambassador or a census champions, we call people, is really just to have a conversation with your family and friends and let them know, like, hey, did you know the census is happening right now? Did you know that it helps, our communities, our neighborhoods, our friends and our families to have a better quality of life? So just having a conversation is one thing you can do. The second thing you can do is also, if you have social media platforms, even if you don't think it's going to make a difference, your network, again, we're at a 67% completion rate. So, 30% of people have not yet gotten counted. That's over 1 out of 4 households. So odds are, you probably have someone in your circle of friends and families that have not yet gotten counted. So posting something about the census on Facebook, on Twitter is extremely helpful. And we have at the city of Long Beach on our website, you can visit, and also the census website, you can pull like really ready to make, already ready-made social media posts that you can just copy and paste with a really cool visual and just share that online, or just retweet, reshare on our social medias from the city. The mayor's office as well is really good, and our elected officials, our council members, also post frequently about the census. So reposting information or posting it on your own really actually does make a difference, especially right now when we're very confined to our spaces here in our homes.
Sorry about that. I muted myself because I heard the sirens go by and I didn't want that to come out.
No worries.
As we kind of wrap up here, I just wanted to, we received another question here. I think this might be the last one we'll address before we pack it up. But what are some of the misconceptions versus reality, really, when it comes to filling out the census? What are some of the things that are causing people to be hesitant, maybe, or to resist to go and register for that?
Sure. I think one of the hesitations is, we think it takes a long time. We hear questionnaire and we're like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me 20 minutes to sit down or go online. It's really actually very simple. All you have to do is go to www.my2020census.gov, or you can even call the census, and I can provide that number too. And it really, for a household of 4 or 5 people, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes max. And it asks very, general demographic questions. It asks for date of birth, or when your birthday, how old you are. It asks for race or ethnicity, your address, of course. And then one, important thing to say is that we obviously encourage everyone to complete the census as complete as possible. But the Bureau really, would prefer any kind of questionnaire completion. So if someone doesn't feel comfortable, filling out one of the questions, that's okay. We obviously encourage people to complete the questionnaire as much as they can. But if it's something they don't feel like sharing, then that's okay. They can still submit that without answering that question. So that's one of the things, the time constraint issue. So it's actually 5 to 10 minutes, and then they'll let you go. And again, we say, take 5 to 10 minutes to make a difference for the next 10 years of your community. That's, what we're really asking for is to take 10 minutes once a year for a whole decade to really help benefit your community, through the funding and representation. The other one is that security piece. Is my information kept safe? And as I mentioned earlier, there are special protections surrounding the information that is sent over to the Bureau via the questionnaires. And, a lot of those are also this along the security piece is, some people are kind of concerned about possible frauds or scams. And that's also, very easy to make sure. Just keep a lookout if you're doing it online, that it is the my2020census.gov, G-O-V. It must be a .gov website to make sure that that is the actual legitimate questionnaire. Right now, I know earlier you mentioned the enumerators, which are the census door knockers. So if people have not yet responded to the questionnaire, there are, Census Bureau staff that are going around our communities following up with people to complete the questionnaire, or to also, clarify any outstanding areas of the questionnaire, or just for quality assurance purposes. So, sometimes people may think that, how do I make sure that I'm giving my information to an actual census staff? So ways to keep a look at is to make sure you can ask them for their badge. And every census staff will have a badge, and they will gladly provide it to you for you to take a look at. It'll have a watermark with the Department of Commerce on there, and it'll have a unique ID that you can actually call the Census Bureau to verify that person's affiliation with the Census Bureau. So Those are ways that you can make sure that it is a Census Bureau staff. A Census Bureau staff or any questionnaire will never ever ask for bank account information, credit card information, social security number. No one will ever ask you to give a donation or provide funds. Nothing like that. It is a very simple 5 to 10 minute questionnaire, and that type of financial information or that level of personal information is never asked in that census questionnaire here in 2020. So those are some easy ways to kind of spot out some concerns, and then ways you can kind of check those concerns out and make sure that it's all above board.
Right. Well, Julian, I think we've reached the end of our chat here. I want to say thanks again for joining us. If there's any final thoughts or any closing remarks you'd like to say.
I have to say, there's still time left. Just because as of now the census timeline hasn't been extended, that doesn't mean you should put it off. Please complete it right now, and visit my2020census.gov, or you can also call the Census Bureau directly at 844-330-2020 to make sure you get counted. If people don't want to do it online, they can do it by phone. And there's a lot of languages. Here we have Tagalog and Spanish as well that people can receive assistance. So please complete the census. Take those 5 to 10 minutes to make a difference, and make sure that the city of Long Beach and our residents have fair representation across all levels of government, and have the accurate amount of funding coming our way to make ourselves have a good community.
All right. Well, Julian, again, thank you so much. And to our viewers, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out here with us with this chat. I know we probably threw a couple of websites at you and phone numbers, but if we just can toss another one at you, if you enjoy these live chats, you'd like to see more of those, give us a support at lbpost.com/support. Of course, it's up to you, but Julian, thank you so much for being here, and hopefully
Sure.
we can have another conversation another time. Who knows?
Of course. Thanks, Sebastian.